And yeah, here we go. So this is episode I don't even know because I don't even count them, but with episode of the Uncivilized Art podcast, Geek Internet Culture podcast, talking about creativity, cultural impact, and today got my man
Okay.
Ural. By the way, let me make sure I'm saying this right. Ural or Ural?
It's Ural, like the
It's
mountains.
Ural. Okay, my bad. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm named after a white
Ural
guy.
Garret. I did.
So,
I did see an interview. I think you said it's a Russian name. Is that right?
yeah, it's Russian. Yeah, it's
Okay. So
Russian. So I'm named after this like Russian guy that pretty much it's kind of like I guess Russia's take on like Beowulf or something like that. One of those like
Beowulf.
kind of
Okay.
and pretty much when he died, he was buried with rocks, and then those rocks created the Ural Mountains.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool
Yeah,
then. I mean, you got like a history behind the name, you
it's a
know.
slave name.
Well, okay, that kind of sucks, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that kind of
slave
puts a
name,
downer on it, you know. That's it was cool. Then it's like, damn, you know.
yeah, but it's cool though. Look, if I'm gonna be any type of white person, I might as well be a god. So fuck
Mm. All
it.
right, so Mr. Ural Garrett, for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a journalist in the industries of entertainment, tech, music, film, TV, little government here and there, social media curator, content curator, um, a little bit of consulting, and all around hustler.
Mm. I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there, though. To be honest, I mean, I mean, say, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're a journalist, but I mean, you've written for some pretty big publications, though.
Yeah, I've written for CNN, Tech Radar, Tom's Guy, Laptop Complex, MTV, BET. IGN had a couple of bylines there. Had a byline at Forbes. Uh, HipHopDx. I was staff there for like three and a half years ish. Yeah,
Mm.
3 years at HipHopDx. Wild times. Wild stories about that. Um, and yeah, I think I named rent. It's probably some more, but I just can't think. Those are just like the coolest and things that I have deadlines for within probably the next couple hours. But but yeah, I've been writing in probably about I guess I'm 35 now. Probably about I've been writing for like 15 years.
15
Yeah,
years. So I do
yeah.
want to ask you something about the journalism,
Okay.
because we met probably about 15, maybe close to 20
Uh,
years ago
on the
on the
GameSpot
GameSpot
forums.
forums. Yeah.
On the
And
GameSpot forums.
I know there's a few people who started off posting quite regularly in the GameSpot forums who ended up getting jobs at GameSpot and I guess went into journalism and things like that. Is that how
Yeah.
it was for you in a way? Where was that
No,
like
my
the
shit
stepping
was
board?
the total opposite. My shit was the total opposite. Because the thing is, like, I posted on forums, but it was just something fun to do to meet people like you. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But I think for me, I didn't start taking the idea of being a journalist seriously until like college. So when I was at college at Southern University, historically Black College University, aka HBCU,
hmm
um, I started doing like general assignment stuff for the paper, for the student paper, and then that transitioned over to uh, writing like more national news and stuff like that, like AP wires stuff, and then that transitioned to me being the arts and entertainment editor. So around that time when I was at arts and entertainment, not only did I cover like film and television, and then like kind of local like artist stuff, college campus. So you got artists trying to, students trying to be tuning artists and all that stuff, and then things that were happening locally. I also covered gaming too. So
mm,
one of the first things that I covered was this game called BCFX Football Unleashed, which was one of the last games made available on Xbox's Microsoft backwards compatibility program
okay, so it's still
on
got life.
Series S or Series X. So it was the first video game actually developed internally by a black-owned studio,
Oh, okay.
and the owner and the founder came from Southern. So it was like a huge thing. Like it was a huge thing. And it ended up being like some crazy controversy stuff. And then like the lady, the owner went missing for a while. It was like some wild, it was like a wild story. But it was the fact that like I got to cover
Oh,
a game from like the announcement to get hands on all the way up to the release. So it was cool. And then I covered other stuff like homecoming concerts. So I got to interview like people like I think I interviewed people like Rick Ross and like Lil Boosie and like all of like the cool like southern rappers and stuff. Sarah Michelle, well she's an R&B singer, but like Floyd and I think Trey Songz Trey Songz 1 year. So it was like stuff like that. So by the time I graduated, I couldn't find a job for shit though. So I was doing the hustle stuff. I was a substitute teacher. I worked at fucking Domino's Pizza. I still had like my 30-second pins, 30-second hat pins. So I could make a pizza in like 30 seconds flat.
yeah.
That's like
Hey, that's a good skill.
that was a good skill. I used to flip the shit in the air and shit. I used to give blood for money. like,
Okay.
yeah, all
But I
of
mean, it's
that
good to
shit.
give blood. Just in general, it's good
Well,
to give blood if you
yeah,
can.
so
If you get
not
some money
blood. I
out
used
of
to
it, I
get
guess
plasma.
even better.
I used to get plasma for money because plasma is different from blood. So plasma is I guess, technically that uh, the liquid that kind of moves stuff throughout your body.
Okay.
With the blood, there's plasma. So I used to get plasma for money. And I had a gang of like little odd jobs, and my homegirl started like a little blog during like the blog era. So
Mm.
I just really ended up getting like a shitload of contacts through that, and I also covered like a lot of artists mad early in their careers, like
Mm.
Kendrick, Freddie Gibbs, YG, French Montana, fucking a shitload of artists, like a shit, Rap City,
Mm.
like early like artists like that, and then every now and then I would try to like do a game review here and there, and those are hard. Like those are a lot of works. Like my years of doing like film reviews, television reviews, album reviews, like a shitload of those. Like game reviews are the most challenging. They just are.
Yeah.
For a myriad of reasons. So did that. And by then I was still living in like Baton Rouge, between like Baton Rouge and Houston, Texas. I was living that southern lifestyle for a while, and then eventually, like 2012, I moved back to LA. Started hustling more. Ended up writing for like Soul Train because Soul Train used to have a website before, they got bought by BET. So I used to write for Soul Train. So I covered everybody from like
Was Soul Train like the dance thing? Because I think I've heard of it.
yeah,
Was it like a
yeah.
dance show or something?
Soul Train was like pretty much the black equivalent to like American Bandstand, like Dick Clark. I don't know. It'd be like it was like a dance show pretty much that like black artists who weren't getting like mainstream looks could come on the show. It was like around in
Okay.
like the 70s, 80s, parts of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then probably like all the way up to like maybe the latter half of the 2000s. But they ended up having like a digital presence. So I wrote for them. I wrote for them, and I covered everybody. Like I covered Issa Rae because she used to have a rap group back in the day called the Doublements. So they used to make really like funny
Yeah.
comedic raps. Yeah. Um, she had a rap group. I covered like Yo Gotti. I covered like people like Eric Bellinger, who's like this like super big like R&B songwriter now. There was a lot of artists that I like covered, a lot. And then that led me to, like I said, I was also writing for a site called Soul Culture UK, which used to be popular. It used to be a popular blog in the UK. So actually, one of the first artists that I covered for Soul Train through Soul Culture was Little Sims.
Yes.
So so the editor in chief of Soul Culture UK was also Little Sims like first manager, and they would like come to the states. So like Little Sims and Eddie, I like take them to the beach and shit. Like like we like hang out when they come out here. So it's like crazy to watch like her rise, and I covered her for the longest. And other artists too, like a lot of other artists too. But I also ended up linking up with HipHopDx when shit really took off when I got with HipHopDx, and that shit was cool. And I was at HipHopDx for like 3 years or so, and literally, yeah, I covered everybody. I did a gang like shit. The amount of interviews and reviews and features and editorials I did for HipHopDx was like insane for a 3 year period. Like I was working, and then I did video photography and all that other stuff too, video editing, like video packages. Like one of the first, actually my first feature interview that I ever did for HipHopDx was like Migos when Versace dropped. Yeah, when Versace dropped when they got the Drake remix and they kind of took off and like Fight Night and Handsome and Wealthy, all of that shit came out. Yeah, so I covered them, XYZ. And then actually, one of the things that I did while I was at HipHopDx is I started a gaming initiative there. So one of the first things that I did was do like these video series called Gaming Wish, which only lasted like 2 episodes. But the first one we did was Migos played Mortal Kombat, where I played Mortal
Oh yeah.
Kombat with Migos. And then the other one was with NBA 2K, where we had like RJ, who's this famous LA rapper. And he was on the soundtrack to NBA 2K. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, the Migos one was wild because I ended up getting like, oh, they left all their weed there, and like we smoked, and then I smoked with them, and then I don't even know, like I just like remember passing out and waking up like a couple hours later in my bed, like with a gang of like Chick-fil-A next to me. It was like insane.
We don't get Chick-fil-A over here, but I keep hearing about how good it is.
What?
So
What?
I mean,
Yeah,
don't
but
get me wrong, we got some
y'all
pretty good
got
chicken
Nando's.
spots, but
Y'all got
the way
Nando's
you guys
though.
talk about Chick-fil-A, it's like, man, I
Y'all
might
got
need
Nando's
to.
though. I trade Nando's for Chick-fil-A. I trade Nando's for Chick-fil-A
Well,
any
okay,
day.
so Nando's, you reckon Nando's better?
Yeah, way better. Yeah, way
Okay, fair
better.
enough. Then in that case,
Yeah,
yeah, that's all
yeah.
right. If you say it's better, then cool, cool.
Yeah, I was like, yo, niggas go to UK or Australia or South Africa, we get Nando's, we treat that shit like that's the best chicken ever. Like, like yeah, you take a black person from America, to Nando's, it's a wrap. We fuck with Nando's hard. Like if I think they have one in the United States. I think that's in like Washington D.C. or some shit like that. But like outside of that, yeah, niggas love Nando's. Yeah, so I get it. But we did that. We did the gaming with stuff, and then I kind of helped spearhead. We had like a celebrity Street Fighter Five tournament around the time Street Fighter Five came out, and I made the kind of link happen between DX and Capcom for that. And that was pretty
Oh,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I made the link between that, and then we had some like really serious like professional gamers there, and I learned a lot about that too. About like that was kind of like my first understanding of esports, which
Mm.
would have kind of helped influence kind of like how I like approach coverage of esports later down the line. But yeah, I ended up doing that, and then I think the next year we had like a NBA Ballers, like 2K Ballers tournament. I think the following year, which by the time I had left to work with Will I Am, they had a Tekken tournament. So yeah, so I ended up I was working for them, working writing for HipHopDx. I was doing OK Player, doing some photo and OK Player is the music outlet that's owned by the Roots.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that. I know of it. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, OK Player. So I was over there I was freelancing over there for a while, and then all of a sudden some strange things started happening, and I ended up working for Will I Am for like 3.5 years, which was insane.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. Did some stuff like VR, AR, some comic book stuff, some music video stuff, some music releases, even a film release, which was pretty cool. Um, so yeah, we did that, and then we did that, and then I ended up just freelancing, and now, like I said, my daily work is a lot of CNN stuff, a lot of CNN Tech Radar stuff, MTV, TQ Too Busy a lot, and then I also do A&R and marketing for this new kind of multimedia production company called Grand Arcana. We got some dope artists. One is named Cindy Lakewood, who is this rapper from Brooklyn by way of Ethiopia. He's fire as fuck. We got this other artist. We got other artists as well that I can't speak on probably right now, but Cindy's the main one. He got like, he did do fire as fuck, bro. He's fire. But I have that, and I also have a radio show that I do every Saturday with this radio station called KBLA 1580, called the Lyric Lounge, Tasha Till and Euro, where we just like where we dissect like music lyrics, and I really get to be like a music geek and music nerd there, which is really fun. It's also for Tavis Smiley's radio station. Tavis Smiley is one of the pretty much one of the greatest like black journalists in United States history. Kind of got blackballed because he had made some unflattering remarks about Obama, President Obama during his presidency.
Whoops.
Yeah, capitalism, government, you know how it goes. But one of the cool things about him is that he literally started one of the only black-owned talk radio stations, one of the only that is like literally west of the Mississippi. So it's like not that many black-owned. First off, in America, it's not that many black-owned anything. It's not that many in regards to like structural shit, like communications and all of that stuff. But yeah, he founded a black radio talk radio station that's doing really well out here in California, and I'm a part of it. So that's pretty much where I'm at the moment.
I knew you did a lot. I guess I don't realize you did that much though. Man.
And I'm a full-time dad too.
You have kept busy, raw.
Yeah.
But yeah, you did mention Little Sims, and I remember you telling me about Little Sims actually. I think you sent me a message one time. He's asked me if I knew who she was, and he asked me if I knew who another artist was as well, and I was like, no, I didn't know them. But then I was checking them out, and I think it was like her. I can't remember the other guy you told me about, but it was her and this other guy. The other guy was alright, but I guess I never kept up with him. But yeah, Little Sims became one of my favorite artists. But yeah, I literally might not know about it if it wasn't for you. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, lit. Yeah. I guess some people call me a tastemaker as well. Even though I hate the term. Like I appreciate the term, like oh you're a tastemaker, but at the same time, it's more so like I feel like that's another word for gatekeeper, and I hate that term. Like I hate that term with a passion. Like I never want to be associated with gatekeeping at all.
I mean, it's just recommending. That's why I saw it. I thought you just recommended something, saying, "Hey, check them out. They're pretty cool."
Yeah.
Turns out she
but
was.
throughout, but throughout my journalism career, like people have kind of thrown like tastemaker at me, and I was like, but I've kind of just like taken it with a grain of salt because I really don't want to seem as some like omnipresent force that is like you're like, oh, this is the next step. It's just like if I fuck with somebody, I fuck with, but. And at the time, like I was really like at the time, even now, like I love like her album last year. That shit was fire. Like the Sometimes I Might Be Introvert album. That shit was like my shit last year. So it was cool the fact that like I was like I said one of the people in the United States that really got to cover that earlier. Plus I have an affinity for UK music anyway. Like I'm a huge Jamiroquai fan. So like JK is like the coolest white guy on the planet in my opinion.
Yeah, he was pretty big back in the day actually. 90s was pretty much all Jamiroquai. I remember that.
Yeah, like I am a huge JK fan. Like literally a huge JK fan. And then there's other artists too. Like even now, like I'm a huge fan of like Sam Henshaw, who just dropped the album earlier this year. It's probably one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best R&B albums this year.
I think I've heard of him. Sam Henshaw.
Yeah, Sam Henshaw. He's dope. He's like in his 20s, but he sounds like Teddy Pendergrass. Like he just sounds like an old. Like he just makes really good old soul.
I feel like I've heard the name somewhere, but I'm not sure I'm good.
Yeah, but he's a fan of that. Like I said, I had a Spice Girls phase,
But I mean, back then, back then I wouldn't have admitted it, but yeah, I mean, now it's
absolutely, back then, back then that was like some shit, niggas will look at you funny if you say it, but now it's like, but yeah, so I have a serious affinity for UK music and just world music in general. So, so I'd like to say that, like I said, like everybody from like I said, Little Sims to Rhapsody to like I said, Freddie Gibbs, like what I mean, it's just crazy. Like I got to see a lot of these artists like grow into these like mega stars. These like really acclaimed artists, that have Grammys and Grammy nominations and doing movies and films and TV and all sort of stuff, So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch like artists that you're a fan of, growing to where they're at now. So
indeed. So for yourself, as someone who's currently a journalist, you've written for games, tech, government, you've done a whole bunch of different types of journalism, and as somebody who was on the GameSpot forums way back in the day, and seeing the what GameSpot's articles and that sort of thing. What would you say is the biggest difference between journalism back then and journalism now?
Definitely the internet for sure. the internet. So like the thing is that the internet wasn't as user friendly or didn't have many communication tools as they do now.
Mm,
So think about like being on GameStop forums was a special thing for like a secret society of people who really were like gaming enthusiasts who knew how to like use forums, right?
mm,
But like now it's like you have social media, you have super easy. Like anybody can make a website now. Like it's
mm,
not that hard to make a website now. Like anybody can do it. You know what I mean? All you need is a Squarespace or a Wix or anything like that. Like back then you had to know HTML or a
mm,
significant amount of HTML to even like, write a sentence on the site,
yeah.
or give it domains and all. But like now, like everything's super easy. So that's the thing. So the ease of use has kind of led to like an oversaturation of things. That's what I've noticed, and then also the fact that like everybody calls themselves a journalist if they have like access to something. Like,
Mm,
oh, I can get an interview with this because this person is like my homie's cousin. You know what I mean? So, and he's high profile, so that makes me a journalist. Because I interview, I was like, it's more than that. It's like, can you make a story?
mm,
Like, can you write a story? Can you do a story with multiple sources? Are you good at research? Are you good at, you know, um, are you good at, explaining something? You know what I mean? Outside of being like, oh, I got this person to interview. I know this person. I know this person. Because it's more than just like, especially now in this like age of entertainment journalism, it's like more so people who don't actually have journalistic skills getting far because of just who they know. And the thing is, like, can you write a story without the people that you know? And that's the difference between a real journalist and
mm,
somebody that just has access. Like, I don't need anybody to write a good story. You know what I mean? I can like one of the like I had a like a slight mentor when I was writing for this paper in Houston, and she was like, "Remember, the person that broke Watergate was the janitor."
okay.
He was a janitor. And so the point with that is that everybody has a story. Everybody's attached to some conversation. It's just not the people that at the top. It's sometimes people want a human element to it anyway. So it's like,
Mm,
yo, I ain't afraid. I'll talk to the person at the bar. I'll talk to a crackhead at the bus. I like literally like I did a story. Remember I did a story for HipHopDx around the time Kendrick's Damned album came out. And if you notice, that album had a lot of like Black Israelite kind of references in it. I think it's like his cousin is like a popular black Israelite in New York or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, let's talk about black Israelites. So like literally, I just like literally went to a church, a black Israelite church, and sat in service one Friday night. And then I met him the next night on the corner, like yelling at people about black Israelite stuff. And I interviewed him. And
mm,
that was like way more fun and way more like exciting than being on some like pretentious red carpet. You know what I
mm,
mean? Where it's like everybody's trying to get whatever headline grabbing thing. It's like, nah, these type like going out there and meeting regular people is way more entertaining than the kind of like cookie cutter PR press run shit that, people that just have access have to go through. Like I just like creating stories. Like it doesn't even matter what it's about. As long as it's about interests that I care about, that's all that matters. And everything else kind of just like happens the way it happens. You know what I mean? Like even this year, I got to write a story for BET on the oral history of the contract DLC with Dr. Dre for Grand Theft Auto.
mm.
And I got to talk to like DJ Pooh, who's like been an idol of mine since I was a kid. And I found out he wrote Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, like significant
You wrote,
portions of
say,
it.
Grand Theft Auto what?
San Andreas, he wrote San Andreas.
Oh, he
DJ
wrote
Pooh.
it.
Yeah. So DJ Pooh, people don't know like DJ Pooh is like a legend out here in LA. Like, dude not only made like some of the craziest beats for like Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg. He's actually Snoop Dogg's DJ at the moment, I believe. But he also wrote like hood classics like Three Strikes, and which is one of my favorite movies, like Three Strikes and The Wash. You got to watch Three Strikes and The Wash. You got to like
All
he
right,
like
okay. Three strikes
yeah.
and the
So
wash.
in The Wash, The Wash is with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
All right.
And then Three Strikes is with this actor. I forgot his name, but it has this like hilarious scene with like E40 that's like fucking hilarious. But he wrote that. He did San Andreas. Super like cool dude. And he wrote parts of Grand Theft Auto 5, and then he wrote a majority of the contract DLC with Dr. Dre. I got to talk to him. I got to talk to Solo, who played Franklin in 5. And then I got to talk to one of my homies that I went to high school with, who actually wrote and was featured in the song on the soundtrack. So it was like I like those kind of stories where it's kind of
Mm.
like, it doesn't have to be big. As long, like I say, the story did
Yeah,
well, and you don't need, and that's what I'm saying. Like everybody wants to go after these like high profile things, and I just be in the cut doing my own thing that end up popping because it's
that's awesome though.
original,
It's
it's
just
cool.
like away from that all that kind of noise and just kind of get to I guess like
Yeah,
taking them all back to the roots of real people, real stories, and
yeah,
like
real
you're
cool
saying,
story.
everybody's got something to say. I
Everybody.
100% believe that as well.
Yeah, so I don't have to, like I said, I've done the big, high profile artist interview stuff, and it's cool. It's cool, but like that's a part of you playing in the machine.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's a part of like you playing the machine, but like when you really get to be free and like really like write the stories that you really care about, like people see that. Like people see that. And you be amazed what people are really into as opposed to like waiting on whatever like Lamar headline, like what I mean, or whatever Doja Cat's doing, or whatever this high profile, cars. Like I've done that, I still do it from time to time, but yeah, it's always those like stories where it's like you get to like really go out there and like talk to people and
Mm.
meet up with people and all that other stuff. Those are the ones that kind of matter the most to me for sure.
So myself though, one of the differences I say that I've noticed from journalism, back in the day to journalism, and particularly with games journalism,
Yeah,
is that these days people are far more willing um, to voice like things like political opinions. You know, go back, 15, 20 years or so, it'd be just talk about the game, talk about the game, talk about the game, and
yeah,
keep any kind of view outside of that, to yourself. And if you
hmm,
ever did see an article that expressed the view, it probably get a lot of flack for whatever. But these days, people are more willing to kind of express their views, and I find that both fascinating, but also I feel like it's somewhat inevitable as well.
yeah,
Because like people who were on the forums back then were maybe in their teen years. They're the
yeah,
ones, or maybe pre-teen years. Now 20 years later, they're the adults writing it, and I guess they've kind of looked at what people were doing back then and kind of felt like the frustration of. I mean, I remember back in games, but you couldn't even use swear words on the forums, right?
yeah,
So you kind of felt that
yeah.
frustration, not fully being able to express yourself. Now you're the one writing, you get to express yourself. You know,
Well, also be mindful that even with gaming, gaming has developed into a legitimate art form.
mm,
So real art always tackles culture, you know, ideas and philosophies and thoughts on government and
yeah,
thoughts on other gang of different topics. Like I think one of the best examples of that is like how like Metal Gear Solid, what Hideo Kojima did with Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation was really revolutionary. How it really challenged like this crazy idea of like American militarization.
mm,
What that actually means from a Japanese perspective. Especially coming from a city that was the first and only, country that was the first and only, to bomb by an atomic bomb.
yeah,
So they have a whole different view of what American, the American military industrial complex actually means. So I think, and then also, you have the artistic details, like how cinematic it was and,
mm,
how like the story, played out and the voice acting and, David Hayter, who was somebody that I've, acquainted myself with over the years, who's a great guy. But I think part of it is that just as games are art, people like you said, people grow up, and you grow up, you see the world for what it is or what it isn't, and those opinions come through. But
mm.
I think also another thing that one of the life changing things speaking of GameSpot was like the Jeff Gerstmann controversy over Kane and
Oh
Lynch.
yeah,
Like, that changed my whole life.
I
That like
remember
literally
that.
changed that whole event literally changed my mind of how to approach everything as a journalist from now on. Like literally, there have been times where like it's almost as if like I won't take an interview if I can't ask what the fuck I want. Like you know what I'm saying? Or like I won't go to this event if I have to do the review and I can't say what I want. Like
Mm,
it's just certain things to where like that's why like a lot of people kind of like, especially a lot of journalists nowadays, kind of celebrate how many like artist friends they have or rap friends they have or how many like, oh, I have like Jay-Z's number through this, or I have this artist number phone number or this or this, and it's like But when this artist does something wild or out of pocket, they kind of feel like their hands behind their back because they want to maintain those relations.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like the reality is that for
Yeah,
me, I
conflicts of
never played it.
interest.
Yeah, those conflicts of interest and like that Kane and Lynch controversy like literally changed my whole life. That happened while I was like maybe a junior or sophomore at Southern, like right for the paper. And I was like, I never want to be in that position where like I'm beholden to like, being like pretty much glorified publicists in a sense. Because that's what a
Mm,
lot of people who call themselves journalists are. They're just glorified publicists. And I never want to be that at all. Like
yeah.
never.
Yeah, I remember
Like
when that
ever.
blew up, when that happened, and we put the rats on how pretty much trashing the game, but of course they were sponsoring the
Yeah.
site at the time.
Yeah.
And when he got fired, it was kind of like different kind of new different kind of news is coming out. Did he get fired? Did he leave? Did he get fired? Did he leave?
Yeah.
But then it was clear that he did actually get fired, and it put such a view on GameSpot as to can you trust his publication as
Yeah.
a reviewer? If it's like, okay, if you see somebody sponsoring a site and they say the game is great, is that game really great, or they're just trying to keep their job?
Yeah.
It took a while for GameSpot to regain that, to
That
repair
level
their
of trust.
reputation. You
Yeah.
know, but in
But
fact,
like I said, Gerstmann went off to do like Giant Bomb and it was
yeah,
like it ended up being bought by like the same company that I own.
yeah,
Like
is it CNET or
okay.
something like that,
Yeah,
or yeah,
I think it was I think CBS owns CNET now.
okay,
But like I said, that that's why I'm like I've always been like an admirer of like Jeff Gerstmann as a journalist because like I think also the fact that like he also when it comes to like games that kind of take at black culture, he also understands the culture well too.
mm,
Like he understands like culture. He understands like, and that's what I always wanted to be. I wanted to always be like someone who like had a full understanding of culture and multiple cultures, but can understand the various like art mediums and the certain things that they require to be called good. Like whether
mm,
that's like music, whether that's film, whether that's gaming, whether that's television. Like there's the is this technically proficient, and then where does this relate to a specific culture?
mm,
And I think that's what I learned specifically from Jeff Gerstmann as a journalist. And then just as a rap, on the rap side, like I have my favorites, like the Elliot Wilsons of the world, like the goat, and then and there's other stuff too, like Roger Ebert, like he's like literally one of my favorite like film critics of all time. And I learned a lot from him and how he approaches things in regards to like film criticism and understanding film on a technical level and then on a cultural level, and on a very like basic layman's terms of people that might not understand various cinematic terms and ideas of cinema. So definitely, but the Kane Lynch controversy really like taught me a lesson on like who I did not want to be as a journalist for sure.
mm.
Like when it comes to reviews and criticisms, like being completely honest about how you feel about a particular body of work or a project or a piece of art, like for sure. Like because the reality was Kanye Lynch was like that shit was garbage, yo. Kanye Lynch was garbage. Yeah, it was garbage.
Yeah, I mean the first one. I mean I've been playing those games for years now, but as
Yeah.
I can remember, I think the first one, I think I remember somewhat enjoying it. The second one, maybe not so much. Um,
Yeah, I did like
but
I played
yeah,
the
it's been
demo. I
so
was
long since I
like,
played. I can't
yeah,
remember my
I do
opinions
that
at this
shit. Like
point.
I think I played the demo. I was like, yeah, this some bullshit. Like I was like, I'm just bullshit, bro. But yeah, I've definitely like I said, I definitely learned a lot from that for sure. Like that literally is something I always think about in regards to like how I approach like criticism and stuff, like going forward.
You mentioned that about there being sort of a technical, on a technical level, and then sort of cultural level for a project. Is that something that you've then taken into your own work as an author?
Yeah, I like to believe so. I like to believe so. I try to even when I wrote like my book, it was more so me trying to like I guess look at like some of like my favorite authors, like Clive Barker, Donald Goines,
Mm,
uh, stuff like that. But then it's just like cultural stuff because I just know like in my book there's just certain stuff that like white people are never gonna get. Like, they just aren't, I say there's people who are black in America, unless you're black in America, you're probably going to understand it. And then whatever, like, kind of associations you make that's outside of that is fucking awesome and great. But, for me, it was just more so of like, yeah, I just want to write some, some like dark, very dark, evil hood, medieval shit, involving Satan.
Yeah, I've read the first, I guess, well, the prologue and the first couple of chapters so far,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's has kind of very sort of violent moments, and I think
yeah,
well, I won't give me too many spoilers away, but as you mentioned about the devil, and there's that whole sort of aspect to it as well, and then there's parts with the priest, no, sorry, the pastor,
yeah.
um, you know, uh. Is that something that uh I mean does that come, I don't say like real life experience, but is that kind of based on um like a real life, say, feeling, or
Oh,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean, like
Yeah.
I'm not sure that question makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely based on a lot of feelings that I have. Some have slightly, I say that some have slightly transformed a little bit since I've written the book.
Mm,
Others definitely, some I just definitely hold strong to, but that just came out of me. Growing up in the church and seeing a lot of dumb shit.
mm,
And then having to deal with people that act, as if they're greater than, but behind closed doors, they also fuck shit.
mm,
um, yeah, and that's the, I guess that's pretty much the idea I was going for, to where like there's this idea of like, Satan being this, I guess the idea I was thinking about was like Satan being this ultimate evil, but the reality is that, um, it's the also like the people that are supposed to be like the bringers of hope that are like just as evil and just as fucked up as
mm,
individuals as this like ultimate villain is supposed to be.
yeah,
so yeah, that's definitely yeah, definitely based off of some things that I've heard about, seen in person, stuff like that.
yeah. And I think I know I've definitely seen some examples of that where people who kind of present a particular image, and then later on you find out that the reality is just nothing like that,
They on some fuck shit.
and yeah, it's one of the reasons why even till now, like anytime I see somebody who they kind of try to paint like a perfect image of themselves, the type of person
Yeah,
who they can never be wrong, or
yeah,
they can they everything's always somebody else's fault, or that kind of, they're always trying to
yeah,
seem to want to create some kind of perfect image of themselves, and those are ones
yeah,
I'm usually skeptical about the most. Like whatever
yeah.
they've usually got some
Yeah.
dark
All right,
secrets, or
look, just like look at Bill Cosby. Like that's the best
what
example of that shit.
yeah, yeah,
Like shit.
right,
That's like that nigga was like, talking about like that nigga was like, this like perfect father on fucking,
mm,
on fucking the Cosby show and shit. And then this nigga talking about some like, doing pound cake speeches and telling niggas about, talking down to black folks and shit. And then you turn around, this nigga fucking a roofing and niggas drink, women's drinks and shit, and putting Spanish fly and shit in they drink and all this other crazy stuff, and like openly joking about putting Spanish fly in women's drinks and shit. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like that shit, like what I mean. So it's like it's always like that's why I be mindful of people who always had this like perfect image, because one thing like his thing that one thing that I like Kanye West is crazy as fuck. He crazy as fuck, and he say some crazy shit. But one of the realest things that he ever said was, "Perfect does not create change.
say perfect, what, sorry?
Perfect does not create change.
Perfect. Oh, okay. Okay.
Like you can't
Yeah.
create change from being perfect. Like you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like I'm always cautious of people with perfect images. Like I'm always
yeah.
cautious of it because you don't know what kind of weird. Just like or even like the shit with Ellen DeGeneres. Like she's supposed to be like the queen of nice, but behind closed doors, she let niggas do racist ass shit. She fucking being like a complete asshole to her workers and shit, which is why the show
Yeah.
eventually got canceled like this year. So it's just like, yo, it's always I told you, it's always those people with these like perfect images that like,
Mm.
and then it don't make it worse now that we live in this like social media age where niggas feel like they gotta do that shit.
Yeah, social media. Okay, I guess with social media, Twitter, and in particular, I suppose. Well, all of them really, but I think Twitter maybe that is probably the worst one. It doesn't. I mean, things are not necessarily different, like to how it was 20, 30, whatever years ago. People like this have always been around, but I guess with social media, it just makes it more prevalent because like everybody, literally everybody, has a voice, and everybody's trying to get their voice out there. And I guess once you've gotten a little bit of fame or a little bit, people coming your way, and then you're trying to maintain that image. The reality is nobody's perfect. So I think one of the biggest travesties of modern day culture, maybe even not even just modern day, but cultures in general for however many years, is that we often don't allow people to make mistakes. Like
Yeah,
somebody screws up and it's like the end of the world. I ain't
yeah,
talking about screwing up like I mean, people do some mad shit. I ain't talking about like when it goes like real
yeah.
serious.
Clearly,
But
yeah,
when somebody doesn't know something, or they
yeah.
they maybe make a mistake or whatever, and they
Speak
thought
out of
this was
turn.
that, and
Yeah,
they just get railroaded, and it
yeah.
you know,
That's also because again we become like a shame culture. It's like that's where we're at globally. Like we're
mm,
just like shame culture to where like that
yeah,
German idea, Schadenfreude. I think that's the name of it, Schadenfreude. When you like kind of find glee out of other people's misery or perceived
okay,
misery. That's because the world's about to end, and shit. People are trying to find happiness out of any little thing they can because there's not really a lot of happiness in this world like that. Like we have
mm,
happy moments and stuff, but like social media showed that it's a lot of miserable people out there,
oh
and they do
sure,
like all it takes is for like one person to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and even if even if it's not really like a cardinal sin in a sense, even if it's just something mistake or something like that, and like niggas be acting like they the worst person in the world. Like they don't,
mm,
what I mean? So it's like that's just where we are as a society. So I mean, the best thing we can really do is that's why I tell people all the time, treat social media like a tool. That shit's not a lifestyle. That shit is a
mm,
curated image of what you want people to see. That
yeah,
shit's not a real
no,
thing.
100%. And it's so true. I mean, even if you're being, say, genuine on social media, it's still
Yeah.
effectively, like you say, curated
Yeah.
image because you're not posting everything about yourself.
Yeah. You're not
You
posting
know,
everything about
you might
yourself.
post a
Like,
few things here and there that are, let's say bad or whatever, but you're still not posting everything. So yeah,
yeah.
even your flaws are picked as to what
Yeah.
you present to the world and how you present to the world. So like, yeah, who you are on social media, like even like I say, even if you're being genuine, even if you're being real, it's not necessarily who you are in real life. Certainly not who you are all the time in
Yeah.
real life. So yeah.
So yeah, that's the way I look at it. But yeah, that's just the idea of social media.
Mm,
Sometimes is that it's supposed to bring people together, right? It's supposed to connect ideas and thoughts together. And I think, like I said, I think that social media is sometimes where people pour out all their misery because they're like shouting into. You think that you're shouting into
mm,
a void, you know what I mean? But the reality is that
yeah, a billion people can
it's
see that.
a billion people can see that. Yeah, a billion people can see that. So I think part of it is that. That's why I tell people, like I said, it's not real. It's just a tool.
Mm,
And the more you treat it like a tool, the more sane you can be, without feeling like, especially in the United States where like, you got a pandemic or like, girls having like body insecurities and shit just from
mm,
like looking at like Instagram and like what the perfect body, quote unquote, is supposed to look like. You know what I mean?
mm,
And it's just like we all know that shit's bullshit. We know everybody got different body sizes and weights and heights and X, Y, Z. But like leave it to certain people, like you gotta look like that person. You gotta look like
yeah, it's that constant
chick,
comparison.
this chick who probably did some despicable things with some rich white dude to get some money to go to the Dominican Republic and get a BBL or some shit like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's just like you got people like, like there's a place out here that you can literally rent out like part of a fucking private plane to take selfies and pictures in to pretend
Mm,
like you're on a fucking flight. Like shit's getting ridiculous out here. But
Here's what I
it's
think.
also it's also where people can connect to, because we've gotten movements and stuff out of
Oh
social
yeah, I mean,
media.
it's
But
definitely a lot of good that can come out of it. But
yeah,
here's what I think about, like, when it comes to that sort of, the comparisons and the people who post like their fancy lifestyles and flying out to fancy places and stuff like that, and you're
mm,
looking at them thinking, oh wow, that's amazing, I wish I could be like that. Here's what I feel like a lot of people need to know, if they don't know already, is that there are people out there, like when you see them posting the image where they got like a fancy car, they're out in Dubai in some fancy hotel, jewelry, all that kind of stuff. They have literally, like, grown women or whatever, sucked on some little boy's dick because some rich guy was like, "Yeah, I want to fly you out here, give you a whole
yeah,
bunch of money to suck on my little brother's dick, and then you can
yeah,
have all this." There are people who would do that. Yeah.
yeah,
Now you
yeah,
don't hear about it. Well, I mean, you
yeah,
might hear about it if you were
yeah,
part of, but
yeah.
they're not going to tell you that, right?
I've heard some wild
But
stories.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard some wild
so
stories
yeah,
about
don't be jealous of these people. Like, if you know that
yeah,
you've got, like, what, you got your clothes on your back, you got your food in your belly,
yeah.
you might not
The
have
bills
all
are
of that,
paid.
but if you know you're a
Bills are
grown up
paid.
not sucking on some little boy's dick,
Yeah, you
you're
know what I
doing
mean.
better. You know
Yeah,
what I
because they be into some, like, yeah, you get to a certain tax bracket, they into some weird ass shit.
mean?
So it's like, they into some weird ass shit. So I'd say that, yeah, I'd say that, get off. Look, I said, I remember somebody told me, it was a psychologist that told me that the most somebody should be on social media a day, if you're not working, is like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Anything
that's probably
outside of
about
that is
right.
like, anything outside of that is like hyper unhealthy.
Mm. In fact, two
Anything
hours, I don't
outside,
know. That might be a bit much as well. But
yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
like,
no,
yeah,
for
it's,
real, for
it's
real.
like an hour or 2 hours. Yeah, that's how, anything outside of that is low. Yeah, anything outside of that is like some like wild shit.
Yeah.
It's a wild shit.
It could definitely be. I mean, I like social media. Clearly, I use it, so I don't want to diss it
Yeah,
too much because, like we say, we definitely have some
yeah,
benefits to it,
yeah.
and I think
It's
some of
some
the
funny shit
benefits
out
are
there.
really incredible. But yeah, there are definitely things to watch out for, and a lot of these platforms are designed to
Yeah,
be addictive. To kind of keep you on it as long as possible, to keep you scrolling, to keep you, look at the next video, the next picture, the next
yeah,
whatever. And they're designed very
yeah,
much to do that. I feel like TikTok is a platform that does that
yeah,
very, very well.
yeah,
Like it's out from its algorithm to this design of the platform. They've
yeah,
really nailed that scrollability where you
yeah,
can be on that platform for literally hours and not
yeah,
realize.
yeah.
So yeah.
And even artists are getting discovered on TikTok too. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, like labels will
it's the place to
have
be.
artists make, yeah, labels will have artists make music just for TikTok. So just for TikTok, yeah,
Yeah.
just to get viral. Like I done seen homies go viral, like literally their whole careers been changed because of TikTok.
Oh,
I've
for
literally
real.
seen it happen. Yeah, or like artists who like, yeah, their whole like popularity has shot through the roof because of TikTok. So
But even
it's one
some of
of those things.
that is manufactured now because I'm hearing how, like, some artists or some labels would pay some of the popular creators to make up a dance or whatever.
Oh yeah, influencer. Yeah,
And
influencer. Yeah, that's called influencer marketing.
so yeah,
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah.
and they're acting like they
That's-
discovered some song. It's like, nope, you got paid.
oh no. Yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, that's influencer marketing. But
Mm,
the song has to be good for it to really catch though. Outside of that, it's just like throwing an advertisement to the wind. You know what I mean? But yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
mm. So something I wanted to ask you about actually as well, just in regards to, because we talked a little bit about sort of arts and the culture, things like that. And I know in an interview that I watched of yours where you talked about a friend of yours or somebody that you knew had been assaulted, um, and you were talking about that and some of the comments that you got on a video. Um, how do you feel about, like, because with, like, say, video games, movies, and books, and how that is when it comes to sort of sexual assault or
Mhm.
violence being portrayed in these mediums, both as a journalist and as an author. Like, do you feel like there is a, like, anything goes, write whatever you want, or do you feel like there is a responsibility that creatives have when it comes to portraying these sorts of things?
I think. I think that, I guess if you understand the idea between like making a statement and then just being a spectacle,
Mm,
I think there's a thin line between that, like doing something for sure spectacle, and then doing something to create a statement or make a statement. And then how effective is that statement that you're making, or how effective is that like spectacle, that you're doing. I think that there is responsibility that has to be had. Um, but at the same time, what's that context? Because context is always important. So I guess for me, it's more so like what and why. Like, what's the intent? Like I said, going back to what I'm saying, is the intent to make a statement, or is the intent to like be pure spectacle?
Mm. Yeah, and I think I see that. Yeah, because one of the things I think about is um, like because I sometimes do stand up comedy, and so you kind of creating jokes, and on one hand you want to push boundaries as much as possible, and
Yeah,
part of that means that you have to be willing to accept that somebody might be offended by what you say,
yeah,
right? Um, but then if I'm going to do that, then I have to be clear, at least clear in my mind, that I thought about what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, and try to as much as possible to make sure that the joke isn't an insult in itself. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Are you
Like,
punching down? Yeah. Are
yeah.
you punching down?
I mean, I don't know if I think about it in that terms. I know that's the kind of the sort of way a lot of people describe it, punching up, punching down. I try not to think about it in that because I feel like it shouldn't matter too much if it's a rich person telling a joke about a poor person, or a poor person telling a joke about a rich person, or whichever
Yeah,
kind of power dynamic it is. What ultimately matters is like, what are you actually saying? Like, what is the actual joke? Like, if the joke is such and such, people are stupid. Like, if that's the bit that's supposed to be funny, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, if that's the bit where you're supposed to make people laugh.
Also, we're just in an age now where because everybody has a voice. I mean, we're seeing like people are sensitive, and people are sensitive to different things,
Yeah.
and you never know what kind of trauma or like what kind of issues someone may have, or what type of deal somebody might have. So
Yeah.
so you never know. You know what I mean? So what might be funny for someone that hasn't gone through it might be funny for someone who has.
Yeah. No,
And,
certainly. Certainly.
and that's why I'm like, the ideas of like language and how we speak to other, even ideas of what essentially is like basic ideas of respect.
Mm,
Some of that, some of those things change over time.
mm,
And I say everything's relative. Like what's funny is always relative to the person who's either a part of the joke or in on the joke or who's
mm,
being joked about. You know what I mean?
mm.
So and that that's about that's more than just something like comedy. That's even about art. Like
Yeah.
if what I mean, if somebody feels offended by a portrayal of a certain person or somebody that has a particular lifestyle or somebody that has certain issues, what I mean, or whether it's physical or mental, X, Y, Z, you know, uh, by all means, if that's what they're offended by, because everybody's offended by. I don't know why everybody be offended, like be acting like they can't be offended by anything. We all got certain triggers that we're
Oh,
offended
sure.
by.
Everybody's got
That's just
something that's
human.
going to
Like
upset them.
the funniest person in the world is going to be offended by somebody, because if you just out here acting like you can't be offended by somebody, I don't even think you're human at that point.
Mm,
Because being offended and being ashamed is an actual human emotion that we all have. So, so, so it's one of those things about if you can't, um, if you can't understand why somebody might feel a certain way, then that's just you being like closed minded and feeling like your shit don't stink.
yeah. No, certainly. And I think that's a part of it for artists as well when it comes to these sorts of things. It's one thing to be like, yes, right, we have, you have the freedom to say what you want, and,
Yeah,
and express yourself in how you want to express yourself. But if somebody is saying that they're offended by it, I mean, yes, you still have that freedom, man. I know a lot of people are, well, I can say what I want, I can say what I want. I try not to fall go into those categories because I don't think it's that
yeah,
simple. You know, if somebody's
Yeah.
telling you, I'm offended by something, this is why
Yeah.
I'm offended by something, then these are points to take on it. And that's not to say, by the way, I guess I don't
Yeah.
think it means that just because somebody's told you why they're offended by it, that means you must change your art. Because also, I
Yeah.
guess you now have to think about, you know, what is it you're trying to do? And is this really the only way that you can do it? You
Yeah.
know, if it's not the only way that you can do it, then yeah, perhaps consider other ways of expressing yourself that doesn't create that offense barrier. But if it legit is the only way that you can do it, then it might be a case of saying, well, that's a person that you know
Yeah.
your art and this person don't mix. You know, I don't know if you heard a about Lizzo. Actually, I guess that's a good
Yeah, the whole
example
spastic thing. Yeah, the
recently
whole splash. Yeah, the whole
where
splash thing. That.
she yeah
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was like, because of what her brand represents, like that shit makes absolute sense for her to do that.
mm.
Like that
And
makes absolute. That's her brand. Like she's supposed to be all inclusive. Of course,
yeah
when she gets out of line with not being inclusive, of course she's gonna have to course correct
yeah.
because
And I
she's
guess
all inclusive.
for Lizzo, and not I don't want to speak on her behalf because I don't know her, but
Yeah,
I imagine it's a similar sort of thing where she gets this feedback, and it's like, okay, I didn't realize that word was offensive in these parts of the world. Um, how important is it that I use this word to express what I'm trying to say in this song? You know what I mean? And are
yeah,
there other ways that I can express what I'm trying to say without using this word? And I guess in her case, well, I'd have to assume the answer in her case was actually I can use another word because she did, you know, change the lyrics.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's like how important because you know you try to create a feeling, a message, you know, an experience with your art, and you do this by the words you use and the tones you create and the visions and the
yeah.
visuals and all these sorts of things depending on what your art is,
Mm-hmm.
and the, you know the colors if you know if something visual, and then so yeah, how important is this specific thing that's causing this offense to the overall picture? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the answer is going to be that's a very integral part to the message you're trying to create. And that's where, you know, you're going to have issues between, you know, am I still willing to put this out in order to try and get this message out, knowing that it's going to piss all these people off? Um, or do I then change it? Because that's the point of like, you know, compromising your vision to appease people, you know, and then your vision isn't quite what it should be. It's not quite the message you're really trying to create, you know. So yeah, I feel like there's definitely a lot of like areas and a lot of things to consider when it comes to an artist changing their lyrics. And I feel like when she did it, I mean, you know, not to say whether it's right or wrong, that's for her to decide. But sad, I feel like I'm not sure people realize how big a deal that is when an artist does something like that. Because previously, when artists have changed their lyrics, it's because they're doing a different version of the song. It's the
Yeah.
live version. It's the new mix
For the
version. It's
edit.
this version, right? This is at least to my mind, and I don't know for sure, but at least to my mind, the first time somebody's changed their lyrics because somebody was offended by it. You know,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
pretty big deal, you know. So,
Yeah.
and what
And
does
not
that?
everybody's gonna do
Yeah,
it either. So not
sure.
everybody's gonna do it either. So
Yeah,
and that's fine. Like, but I think for Lilo, yeah, that had to happen
yeah,
because, like I said, you can't be this big, you can't be this inclusive, especially someone who's a full figure woman. You can't
mm,
be out here talking about body positivity and all this other stuff, and then you single out somebody with, a specific mental disorder. That's where you
mm,
get brand confusion. That's how you get brand confusion,
mm,
and that can hurt. That can hurt in the long run, especially when your brand is you being all inclusive. So that's why it's important for. That's why it was important for her to do it. Now, will that work for somebody else? Probably not, especially if
yeah.
they're a little bit more wild with how they, maybe they might be a little exclusive towards a specific group of people. But
What would be interesting though is that you know, for I guess anybody, let's say Lizzo, for example,
yeah,
you know, what happens when the day comes where somebody's offended by something that is a bit more important to the overall song. You know, I guess we'll cross that bridge if we come to it,
yeah,
but it does set or does potentially set an interesting precedent as
yeah,
to because I feel like I actually spoke about this with somebody on the podcast with my man Sweet Bundy actually. a little while ago. This idea of like the way kind of media is now with games, music, movies, because everything is digital. A lot of things are streamed. If something gets changed, that gets replaced. You know what I mean? Like you go on your streaming platforms or whatever, it's just that new version now. Things get taken off, things get edited, and it's just that new version now. So it's like, it's kind of like a thing where I think I've lost my point, but hold on a second, it's there somewhere. But yeah, it's like it's an interesting thing. Like before, that old version would be on a disc somewhere.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Now it's
Absolutely.
like it's just gone. You
Yeah,
know
just
what I
like
mean?
Dr. Seuss. Just like Dr. Seuss. Like there's just certain things that Dr. Seuss said that was acceptable years ago, but especially regarding the Native Americans and stuff. And now you can't do that anymore. So it
Yeah.
just is what it is. But I have to go.
Oof, we've reached that time.
Yes, I
We've reached
have to
that time.
go.
All right, cool, dude. I appreciate you coming through.
No problem. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me, man. You the
Yeah,
homie
hopefully we
for
can do
life,
this
bro.
again sometime. But yeah, thank you for listening and or watching to everybody. Check out Ural Garret. He's got a book out. He's a journalist. He's all kinds of stuff. Twitter, everything.
Yes,
Um,
Eurog.com.
yes. There'll be links in the description, all that kind of stuff as well. But dude, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good to chat with you. And
Man,
until
always a
whenever.
pleasure, bro. Always a pleasure, bro. We gonna chop it up
Awesome.
some more though, for sure, bro.
Awesome. Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace.